Hey guys, Vazzy back here, and it is that time of year again. The time of year where we discuss everything regarding the next iteration of the EA NHL franchise, that being NHL 26. So I'm going to put some background footage on here from NHL 25. We're going to get into all the rumors, everything we know for sure. We're going to look at all the marketing timelines, everything from previous years, and we're going to try and make some predictions on what we could see for NHL 26 and when we can expect that news. So these are videos that I do put out yearly here on the channel. Try to do maybe one or two a year, don't want to milk it or anything like that. But it's actually a little bit earlier than I was expecting this year. Normally they go up, and I was planning on putting this up the first week of July. First weekend of July, I should be specific. But there's been some interesting updates, and there's a few things that seem to differ this year than they have in previous years. Okay, so let's start things out. What do we know for sure? We know for sure that NHL 26 is coming. That's pretty obvious, but we do have to put it out on the table. EA did confirm a little bit earlier in the year that NHL 26 will be coming out in Q2 this year. Normally, it does come out in Q3. It is a very similar timeline. The quarters with EA, it works a little bit different, but Q2 runs from July 1st to September 30th. So that means that we have to get the game at some point before September 30th, which is a little bit earlier than what we've seen in years past. Normally, we're used to getting the game in the first or second week of October. So anything earlier is welcome in my opinion, and I think a lot of the community shares the same views. Of course, obviously games can be delayed, but when it comes to yearly sport games, that doesn't really ever happen for the most part. This isn't something like GTA 6 where they keep pushing it back quarter to quarter. NHL will very, very likely be out some point before September 30th, and we know that for sure. Also, some interesting news regarding Hockey Ultimate Team. So just the other day, EA announced that you can start earning packs for NHL 26. So basically, if you don't count the earnings call where they announced NHL 26, this is the first real acknowledgement that EA has made toward the game and that it is on the way. This is a lot earlier than what we have seen in years past. Normally we have to wait till almost like mid-August some years to actually get official confirmation of when we're going to get a trailer that there is a new game on the way. But end of June is very, very interesting. You're basically speeding up the process by 2 months, which in my opinion is very surprising. It looks like they are changing, at least how they're doing the marketing around this game, and hopefully that means that maybe a trailer, obviously it's not going to be, I don't think, anytime very soon, but maybe it is a little bit earlier than what we've seen in years past. So that is a perfect transition into my next talking point. Let's take a look at some of the marketing schedules for other sport games compared to NHL, and let's see how it all compares. I put this chart together last year, and the only thing that really had to be updated on it was the addition of Madden 26. Current time of recording, FC 26 has no news, no trailer, no information, so this is basically just the last 5 years of the NHL franchise, the Madden franchise, and the FC/FIFA franchise. So you'll see all the first dates that we've got trailers for all of these games for all of these different franchises. You can also see all the release dates, and you can see the total marketing time. And you will note that NHL is by far the smallest marketing window for these 3 sport games, coming in at 50.8 days. Madden is at 68.8, while FIFA/FC is at 75 days. And here's just another graphic of all the NHLs over the past 10 years and when their trailers have been announced. And man, do I ever miss when the games were revealed so much earlier in the year. And obviously COVID had a huge hand in destroying the old format compared to what we have now. And I even made a post on Twitter/X not too long ago regarding the NHL awards and how we used to have the cover votes, we used to have the cover reveals at the NHL awards show, and how they should do something like that again. The NHL awards are currently so pointless. But that is a topic for another video. Let's move over to betas/technical tests/ the just general play tests and how that in the community has been a bit of a hot topic here of late. And if you are online, you know what has been going on. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know what really is allowed to be talked about, and I do not want to get in trouble here for today's video. But let's look at the past playtests/betas and all that from previous NHL games to see if we can get an indication of what might be happening here over the course of the summer. So this is what was happening over the past few NHL games going back to NHL 20. And interesting to note, NHL 20 was technically the last open beta that we've had in an NHL game. From 21 to 24, they have been just classified as a closed technical test. Honestly, they're more or less the same thing. I don't know if there's really any differences going back to 2020 compared to 21. That was a long time ago. I unfortunately do not remember. But all these tests do have a few things in common with each other. They feature more or less the same game modes. You have World of Chell almost all the time. You likely see Hockey Ultimate Team and then some kind of versus mode. It kind of goes back and forth whether you'll see hut or versus, just some kind of one-on-one action for you to get into. These tests normally run anywhere from 5 to 9 days, with the longest technical test going back to NHL 22, which ran for 9 days. And generally, this isn't really even more or less for the feedback on the game. It's not like they're going to really have too much time to change anything major, but this is to just kind of stress test the servers and just make sure everything kind of holds up. The game launches, there's not any major issues that has to be solved before launch. And it was kind of weird. Last year was the first year in a long time that we didn't see any of these tests. You couldn't play NHL 25 early whatsoever. And it was the first year something like that had happened for a while. Like I said earlier, something may or may not have been happening here over the course of the weekend. Don't want to really get into that, but I'm assuming at some point later in the summer, total guess, total prediction, that we may see some kind of test return, hopefully to the series, where players can get their hands on the game in some form and just kind of test it out and have some fun. And it's kind of hard to predict a time right now with how the NHL calendar kind of is in flux. Normally it's in like late August to early September. Maybe you see this at the beginning of August. Who knows? But it seems like everything kind of has been shuffled a few weeks up. So I think that's at least a pretty good guess on a potential time frame. So now that we've gone through more or less everything that I wanted to cover here in today's video regarding past games and looking back on how stuff has run in the future and taking a look at the landscape of current day, what are my predictions for NHL 26? When will we see our first trailer? Let's start with that. So the last 3 game trailers have either come out on a Wednesday or a Thursday, with 2 of them coming out on that Thursday. So I think a decent date, a few weeks earlier than what we normally see, would be Thursday, August 7th. I think that's probably a pretty reasonable range. Like I said, that's about 2 weeks earlier than normally what we would see, with it normally being August like 22nd, 25th, we've seen the past few years. I think August 7th makes some sense where we could get our first official look at this next year's game. But then moving over to when do I think this game will actually release? We've gone over the trailer. What will the actual release date be? And again, these games always do release on a Friday to the general public. This is not including the early access time. The game will basically always launch on a Friday. So looking at a calendar, a few weeks earlier would make sense at probably September 19th. That brings us a heck of a lot closer to the pre-COVID window that we used to see these games. And that's not even including the early access. Last year we saw the week-long early access, which was a first. If they keep that up, getting the game September 12th is a possibility. I think if they do go earlier with the 19th, I think they'll probably revert back to the 3-day early access for if you pre-order and get the higher up edition. That would be my guess, but honestly, if they keep the week-long early access, getting the game on the 12th would be incredible. But yeah, that's what I could see happening. Again, I've been wrong quite a bit in the past, so don't take anything I said here. Take that with a grain of salt, and let's just see what happens over the course of the summer. So yeah, that's going to be my video here going over everything we know about NHL 26, all the speculation. And yeah, this will be my only video talking about all this stuff until we have official news from EA, which hopefully won't be too far out. Let me know all your thoughts and comments on this subject in the comments down below, and I will see you all in the next video.